Alright, here we go with Game 2 between Todd and Cupcake, and I'm your host, Sidewinder, with Community Starcraft 2. We'll be taking a look at what these guys have to offer after a pretty interesting Game 1. I thought Cupcake's build was a little wonky in that first game. Skipping out on Marines really hurt him against those Charge Zealots. He was trying to rely a little too heavily on being able to counter the tech that Todd had on the field, but he lost that battle eventually when he didn't have any Vikings on the field when he was fighting against a whole bunch of Colossi. 3 Colossi were just ripping up his army and ended that first game in a hurry. So we'll see what these players decide to do in this game. As we can see, nothing but standard stuff coming down so far, which is really normal in this matchup. Very cool icon here out of Todd. It looks like the sword from Halo 2 and 3 and Reach and ODST and whatever other games they decide to make. But yeah, so Todd definitely looking very impressive in that game with his Templar control, landing very huge key feedbacks. Very few EMPs went off, and when they did, they weren't that important. So Todd managing the battle very well, having the spotting that he needs to make that happen in the first game. But second game could bring us pretty much anything. I don't think we're going to see such wonky tech builds out of both of these players, where Cupcake was going for Vikings, I mean not Vikings, but Medevacs, when he was only on 2 barracks, which is really risky. Todd is now finally scouting on about, he left his base about 13 supply. It was probably the same probe that put his gateway down. And he's going to head out here and see what Cupcake is doing. Scouting in weird locations and now heading into Cupcake's base. Cupcake is not scouted at all, so he feels pretty confident that Todd's going to do some pretty standard stuff and not hit him with anything too unexpected. But the barracks is now finishing up, and whoa, huge misclick right there. Pulling all of his workers to deal with that probe. Yeah, if you do something like that, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but you actually lose probably about 100 to 150 minerals depending on how long those workers are actually off the line. So that's unfortunate, but you can see all the clicking going on here. I'm not sure what Cupcake is actually doing. He's going to be sending a Marine out here to kill that probe, but the probe wisely runs away before the Marine is out. He's going to go ahead and put a tech lab on here just as he did in the first game and get some Marauders out. So you can see Todd with another interesting pylon placement kind of forward again so that he can get units closer to his opponent's base. Even though it seems slight, it actually can make a little bit of a difference. But the SCV for Cupcake finally arrives and sees what's going on. Todd may also be doing this just to try to trick his opponent, because one of the key scouting reads if you're Terran against Protoss is to come in here and see how many pylons you can see. And if he only sees 1, he may be thinking there's something else that's proxied somewhere, so you can get a little tricky like that. But Cupcake opening with the Reaper first into Command Center, so this is an interesting build here so far. I'm curious to see how well it'll do. The probe and the SCV here meet in the middle, and the probe just gives the SCV a high five as they go by. And the Command Center, again, here is on the way, but only a Reaper and now a Marauder coming out here. I would like this if you went for a second Marauder, but if you do that and you push with those units, you usually make the Reaper last. Todd putting a gateway down here. He's going to go up to 3 gates before he decides to expand. So it's going to be a 3-gate, probably a pressure expand, which is a really nice call against the Tech Lab first, and especially considering there's now a Reaper on the map. So Todd still needs to be keeping this Reaper in check a little bit, and it's going to see this Reaper well in advance with that pylon. So pylon serving more than one use. You can see Cupcake's going to jump in here. He's going to see that and be like, oh, now he knows I'm here. Stalker's going to come over here and do some damage to that Reaper. The Reaper will try to get a probe kill, and he's going to get 1, but that's it. So Reaper not doing very much. Todd is now going to take his Nexus, as we can see him patrolling his probe once again, waiting to get that Nexus down. But no real pressure off of these 3 gates, so this is kind of a weird build here. It's essentially what you're going to have with the 1-gate expand. Whoa. Yeah, it looks like there was probably some lag going on. I think this is actually from a tournament, considering they're talking about admins, but now Cupcake is doing basically the exact opposite of what he did the first game, going up to 4 barracks really quickly, possibly after seeing no Nexus thus far out of Todd. And Todd's expansion's kind of late. Like, if you go and expand this late, I think you need to pressure off of it so that you can kind of keep the Terran in their base for a little while and prevent them from landing that command center right away. Cupcake doesn't look very interested in doing that anyway, maybe because he knows that Todd would be pressuring behind this, but yeah, could be some pretty high-level mind games going on right here. Todd putting another pylon in a weird spot in his base. Again, it could be just to hide stuff over here, but yeah, Todd has a very unique playstyle that I'm not really used to seeing. There's even another pylon sitting over here once again, so random pylons on the map. for Todd. He's waiting to see if that command center is going to land, and now he's going to see it. He could even be a little annoying with his probe and prevent the landing for just a second and make Cupcake show what he has at the top of this ramp. But Cupcake's not going to bite. He's actually going for reactors this time, so he's not going to be going all Marauders this game. He's going to actually be putting out Marines, which is really much needed. Todd going to set up his expansion here. A little bit of a slow game thus far. 4th gateway, so 4 barracks versus 4 gateways. That's exactly where you want to be for either player, making sure that you're not going to get out-united and have too many units here on your front door that you can't really deal with. But Todd's economy should be a little bit ahead. You can see 35, 31. The mules will even that up just a little bit, but Todd is now grabbing his robotics bay so that he can grab Colossus out of there really quickly. Again, going Colossus first. Here's a push out from Cupcake with SCVs, so this is a weird attack and a weird timing, but Cupcake's going to be pressing up here with these SCVs. All the probes do evacuate away from the expansion, so Todd can't afford to sack this. He's going to go ahead and press down here, but I think the Nexus is still going to die. So, no, Cupcake does avert his attention over to the units. Decent force fields here, but there's just a lot of stuff out for Cupcake. Hitting a really nice stim timing here, and Todd just running out of DPS. He's going to lose that Nexus if Cupcake decides to just right-click on it, and he's going to right now. So that Nexus is down, and Todd is officially way behind, as we can see him losing a lot of units. He does lose his expansion, and Cupcake's expansion is now solidified. So Todd is supply blocked after losing that Nexus as well. He can't get his Colossus started, so that really, really sucks for him. He's going to try to reestablish this Nexus, which if you remember in Game 1, he did lose his expansion Nexus, but I think he was in a lot better footing at that point, considering he was already a little bit ahead in economy off of that 1-gate expand. Cupcake's going to go ahead and retreat, wait for his medevacs to come out before he pushes out again, which is really smart. He's even freeing up the reactor so that he can start the starport right on it. But no, he's actually swapping out those and going for 2 more tech labs, I would think. Is that what you're doing, Cupcake? He has really weird builds. Like, I like it this game, but the first game was just like, what? Like, what are you doing? But anyway, yeah, he's going for a naked barracks right now. That has to be for starports, but he doesn't even have his factory started, so his timings are just so off. They just really catch me off guard. But here come a few sentries pressing out here, a couple stalkers, few zealots. He cannot afford to engage this at all. He'll get crushed if he decides to commit into this, so he's just coming out here to deny it a little bit, kind of feign aggression while he goes ahead and he reestablishes his base. He's keeping up in supply okay, but that's because Todd, or rather Cupcake, is throwing down 2 starports right now. And yeah, it is going to be a tech lab on that last barracks, so we're probably going to see all Marauder production here once again, and a ton of Vikings, which served him well in a couple of battles, but the lack of Vikings is ironically what killed him in the last game. So Todd here again is on 4 gateways, robotics producing Colossus, and he's just now reestablishing his Nexus and getting that mining back. All in all, he's behind by about 15 supply. He's going to be behind in upgrade since he doesn't have a forge starting. There's a Twilight Council on the way, which means he's probably going to be prepping for the transition. 4 medevacs coming out at a time here from Cupcake, which is actually pretty smart. He needs to heal these units up, and then his next push, if he has this many medevacs, is going to be really devastating. Todd is now throwing down his Templar archives, getting ready to transition into Templar. A lot of people like Templar first, a lot of people like Colossus first, and there's different ways you can handle both types of armies, but Todd is feeling pretty confident that he can get in there and do some damage. He does have an observer here, so he can see that there are now medevacs on the field, but if he saw all 4 pop at the same time, I think he actually needs to be a little careful, but he's being rather brave here, walking all the way up to the Terran base. 121 to 100 supply here. Todd's still a little bit behind. Armory coming down here probably to start +2 weapons. We can see the Colossus waddling its way back across the map to go home. That's such a weird face. Like, I don't know what that's supposed to look like. It doesn't even really look like anything, but anyway, Storm is on the way, Charge is on the way, so a huge Templar transition is coming up here. Only 2 bases worth of gas to fund these Templars, so this is fairly all-in-ish in the terms of switching to this tech so early. But what he actually is doing is he's making this Colossi look like it's a lot more threatening than it really is. It's making Cupcake produce a lot more Vikings than he should be, because you can see he's now going to be at a lot of Vikings, at 6 Vikings for only 1 Colossus. It's kind of overkill. So you can see a scan coming down here. Cupcake is really killing Todd in supply right now. Storm is not done yet. Charge just finished right on time. There's just probably not enough stuff here to deal with all the stuff that Cupcake has on the field. Those +1 Marines especially are ripping through these Zealots, and Todd just loses everything rather easily, desperately trying to force field, and he goes down in Game 2. So we have a 1-1 series here, going to go into a final game, Game 3. It is a best-of-3 series that we are casting here. Yeah, so you can see how devastating getting your Nexus sniped is. So you need to be kind of wary and make sure that you know what's going on in the Terran base if you're going to expand like that. Make sure that you are equaling his production at least. Whereas he was on 4 quick barracks and just pressed in there when he got stim done and killed Todd. Todd was busy teching and throwing up extra buildings and doing all sorts of stuff rather than just putting out units that are going to be able to deal enough DPS to deal with that. So a little sentry heavy, but we're going to go ahead and head into Game 3 and see what that's going to bring us. I will be back to cast that in just a second.